Hello, and in this tutorial, we're going to show you guys how you start building a resume shell, what a shell is, and why this is important before you start actually building your resume in graphic design. Um, and I've seen it cross over into other industries. We have a little more creative resumes, sometimes visually because of the nature of the business that we do. We're a little more visual. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start building in and laying out our resume, and that's the importance of the shell. Is we want to get the layout down and make sure that we're giving ourselves enough space where we need it for us to fill in the information later. So you're just kind of doing this as a layout purpose, and then you'll come back in and fill in more information. So we'll go ahead and start with our logo and our contact information. We tend to build these our resumes and stuff like that based off of a couple of things: your business card and your letterhead. This would be a letterhead, for example, that you're leaving yourself enough negative space in here on a letterhead that you could fill in to use as cover letters, thank you letters, letters of recommendation, invoices even, to use to send out. And so you can use this as a template for your resumes as well, because like your business card and stuff like that, you want to maintain a unity to it, that you're using the same color palettes and the same fonts, things like that. So we'll go ahead and get started by putting in our headers. A header is just like what you see that just popped up on the screen for education. Header is so that they can navigate. We've got to think in terms of your audience. Your audience for a resume is two people. Your audience is a HR person who is just got to go through this really, really quickly to find out if you qualify as an applicant. And then after that, whoever your direct employer is going to be, they will then look over it a little more in depth to see what your skills are, your work experience. They'll actually read the resume a little more in depth. So your HR person has just got to find out, are you qualified? Do you have the correct education that they're requiring? Do you have the amount of work experience that they're requiring? Do you have the skills that they're requiring? That's all an HR person is really looking for, to see, are you qualified to be an applicant here? And then finally, your direct supervisor will look over your accomplishments to see what type of employee you are and what type of employee can they expect if they hire you. So what you're doing with this in the shell is you're trying to make sure that you got your layout organized, that these two audiences can find what they're looking for really, really quickly. And so you're going to start filling in what they call placeholder text. It's under your type menu where you put in, you draw your type box, and then you can fill the type box with just Latin text like you see here on the screen. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to typeset it so that when you start filling everything in, it's already set up in the font that you want to use. And that all you got to do is highlight it and then start typing in your, in this case, your educational background. One of the things that you want to pay attention to when you're doing this is a couple of things. One, make sure that when you have, we'll turn this off for a second, unlock it rather for a second so you can click on it. Make sure you have your paragraph palettes open, and when you are turning things off, or rather creating your text, make sure you're turning off the hyphenate feature of all of them. You don't want your stuff to hyphenate and break unnecessarily. It creates widows and orphans that you can avoid. And something else that you're going to, of course, want to avoid after your proofreading is widows and orphans. But now it's typeset that we can add in and highlight degree and change things on here. And the other thing that you're doing, and where Shell kind of helps you out, is that as you start filling things in, that you can you can see how much space you're using. And education is never going to use a whole lot of space unless you have a lot of degrees and certificate training. So if that's the case, then you're going to want to make sure that you map out so you're giving yourself enough room for this. Maybe the logo has to scooch over a little bit in order to accommodate all of your experience. So you can put it into two columns here. or whatever. But that's what you're really kind of looking for here, is that you're looking to make sure you're giving yourself enough space. And always, education and skills are never going to need a whole lot of space for them. With skills, for example, you may not even list them like we have here on the screen. You may sublist them, like, so you're not being redundant with everything. So you're not writing Adobe a million times. You're just writing Adobe Creative Cloud 2021 or whatever, and then under that you're putting in subsets of what software you know in Adobe, Illustrator, InDesign, Lightroom, or whatever. You can do it with Microsoft Word as well, and then subset it. And if you speak a different language, you can put that in your skills as well. If you know specific equipment that are related to graphic design or even photography, you could still put it in there. But you're never going to need as much space for skills and education as you will for your work experience and your accomplishments. And so you can see how we've typeset experience, where we've made it bolder and bigger so it stands out to that audience again. Remember, that HR person is they just got to know, do you have the education degree that they're looking for, that you know the software that they're looking for, and that you have enough years of experience. And then your direct supervisor is going to look over all this a little more in detail and look over this more in detail to get an idea if they want to interview you or not. So this becomes basically your shell that you can work your layout and get your layout working in, and you're using just placeholder text so that you can get an accurate look at how this is going to kind of come together. And then one last closing comment is that when you're setting your type really shouldn't be, for your regular type, shouldn't be bigger than 10 points. 12 is really, really kind of big. As you can see, my regular body copy here is 10 points, but my header is 12, or rather, not my header, but what degree it's going to be, the subhead is 12. So you can see how big 12 points is versus 10 points. 10 points is about the average size of what you see on a website. It's about the average size of what you see in a printed magazine. So your body copy should always be 10 points. And then your subhead that tells you like the years you worked and things like that can be 12 points. And then it gets to stand out a little bit more. You set it to bold or caps or a color, and that makes it stand out more. Again, anything you can do to help with the navigation. So this shell's ready to go, and you're ready to start filling things in. So if you need to, you can watch the lecture that talks a little bit about how you fill things in and what you fill in for it.